Welcome back to TechRadar. I'm Phones Editor James Peckham.
And I'm TechRadar's video producer Matt Phillips, and once again starting all these videos like this lately, but thank you for the massive amount of support on the previous few videos. We've done best gaming laptops, we've done best phones, and now we're going to do best budget phones with James. Looking forward to it. If you find value in these videos and you like them, please do drop a like, it helps us out loads, and subscribe on YouTube, because in the YouTube description there are a whole ton of links that are going to help you out today. So the first link is to the full buying guide on TechRadar.com, which includes many more phones. Also, if you click that link, it will send you to the list for your country specifically, which is very useful indeed. We're going to go through the top 5 budget phones in the UK today, but a lot of these phones have a lot of crossover. But like I say, if you head to that link in the description, it will send you to a list of your country's specific phones. Also in the description are links to full reviews of all the phones we're going to talk about today, as well as buying links so that you can go and find the best deals in your areas. Those buying links update automatically, so they're very, very clever indeed. They find you the best deal currently on offer. But something to be aware of is that they are affiliate commission links, and we at TechRadar are supported by you, our audience, and we very much appreciate that. Whew, with the rigmarole out of the way, James, how you doing?
Sure, all good. Yeah, this is a list that changes regularly for us, so this may change by the time you're watching this video, but it's an interesting market at the moment. Cheap phones is there's a lot happening.
100%. We've seen a lot come out recently. The iPhone SE came out this year. The Pixel 4a came out this year. So there's a lot of movement in this list, and by the time you're watching this, it may have changed. Like I say, head to the description, see those links to see. But for now, let's jump in at number 5, the Motorola One Macro. Motorola, obviously a company that keep bringing out phones, and so many phones. It's almost difficult to keep up.
So many phones.
Too many phones. But tell us a little bit about the One Macro, why it deserves to be in this list.
Sure. As you say, Motorola make a lot of devices, and the cheaper end is where they put most of their focus. They do still make flagship devices, and we've seen the Motorola Razr folding phone, that sort of thing, really expensive devices. But the cheaper devices is really where Motorola sort of sings, and they've got a few entries on this list, as you'll find out. The Motorola One Macro may be the oldest device we have in the top 5 at the moment in the UK. Now, the name suggests that it has a macro camera, and it does have a macro camera, but that is not the highlight here. It is the good screen and the dependable battery life that we really like about the Motorola One Macro. Again, you do have a macro camera, which we found to be middling at best. Actually, I think in some parts of our review, we even called it bad. It's not, even though it's in the name, it's not the real highlight of this phone for us. So you're getting a really good screen here, a genuinely large battery, and lots of storage as well. For this sort of price point, that's really quite remarkable. Something to note as well is that our cutoff in this list is £200 in the UK, which means that anything over £200, so things like the iPhone SE and the Google Pixel 4a won't actually rank in this list. So we are looking at a lot cheaper devices here, but there are still a lot of phones to choose from, especially in the UK.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, we've got it set at £174 is currently the best deal you can get on it. By the time you're watching this, that could be very, very different indeed. But yeah, so if you're looking then for a phone with a really great camera that's on the cheap end, maybe this isn't the one to go for, but something like battery life, maybe this one is more. Yeah,
battery life is the reason this is here essentially, and the affordable price. Yeah, if you need a camera for this sort of level, wait until you hear about another phone coming up.
Brilliant stuff, brilliant stuff. Well, that brings us then on to number 4 and the Honor Lite 10. Obviously, Honor, one of these Chinese brands that have come up relatively recently and started making, again, a lot of phones. So tell us a little bit about the 10 Lite.
Yeah, so we have an Honor device and a Huawei device coming up, just to be entirely clear that both of these devices still have access to Google mobile services, even throughout the Huawei ban, which you probably read about. If you haven't, head to TechRadar and type in Huawei ban in the search, and you'll be able to read all about it. Essentially, Huawei and Honor have both been restricted in their use of certain Google services, restricting the use of Android on their devices. For example, you can't get the Play Store on the Huawei P40 Pro. These devices that we're going to talk about, including the Honor 10 Lite, you can still get that at the moment. So this is probably the most premium handset in terms of feel on this list. It genuinely feels like a top-end device. It feels like it's an Honor 10, but slightly lower spec. It's going to give you that really lovely feel. You've got a full HD screen here, which is something the Motorola One Macro can't offer you. So that's a really major boon for this. Yeah, we really like the display, and the main thing you probably want to note if you are looking at this is it does have a micro USB port, which is a little bit dated compared to a lot of other devices on this list. You usually expect most Android phones to have USB-C by now, but this one does not.
Yeah, exactly. And again, coming in at the cheaper end, I think, of the price point of phones we're going to look at today, £130 currently. Again, by the time you're looking at this, it might be different. But yeah, for 130 quid, how can you complain about a sort of a micro SD slot? You know, it's more than viable, I think.
Yeah, and the other thing to highlight is it's got a 24 megapixel front-facing camera. So if you're consistently using Instagram and you're consistently using Snapchat and just always taking selfies, and you don't want to be spending lots on a phone, this could be the one for you.
Absolutely. So then that brings us on to number 3, and we mentioned it a little bit earlier, the Huawei P Smart. So this is a phone I actually know nothing about. When did this come out? Do we know?
In 2019 at some stage.
Okay.
So this is again a little bit dated. It's remained in our list because it is the last cheap Huawei phone to have Google mobile services. But so yeah, you've got another slick design here. You're talking about a similar kind of price to the Honor 10 Lite. We really like the look of this phone, and the spec is still pretty good as well. You're getting a full HD screen. You're getting 3 GB of RAM, and if you want the 64 GB of storage as well. Battery life seemed to be pretty good, but not incredible. It's that sort of like middling ground, which a lot of cheap phones sit in. Things you probably want to look out for, though, is that it only has one speaker, and the camera can over-process images slightly.
Fair enough. But, you know, Huawei are one of those interesting brands that are really branching out at the moment, right, with tablets and laptops and all these kind of things, trying to get people into their ecosystem in a similar way that Apple do, right? So if you're looking, you know, for a cheap phone, but then also to get a laptop that can connect with it and all these things, tablets, then maybe Huawei is the brand to look out for.
Yeah, potentially. As I say, I personally think that you need to be knowledgeable on the Huawei ban scenario and how Huawei is now being restricted in its use of Android. But to the best of our knowledge, that's not going to affect this phone specifically. It's going to affect Huawei phones going forward.
Sure. So then that brings us then on to our number 2 pick, and the Oppo A5 2020 phone in the list. Coming in around £150. Like we say, it might be different by the time you're watching. But tell us a little bit about this one, James. Why it deserves to be at the number 2 spot?
Sure. We're back to battery life, essentially. This is probably the choice of this list. If you want a fantastic battery, you're getting a 5,000 milliamp cell here, which is remarkable, really, considering most other devices in the list on this list are around the 3,000 mark. Flagship phones even, I believe one of the Pixel phones even has a battery in the 2,000 milliamp level. So yeah, if you want superb battery life, the Oppo A5 2020 is the one to go for. You're getting 4 cameras on the rear of this phone. There's a 12 megapixel, an 8 megapixel, a 2 megapixel, and a 2 megapixel. We didn't find them to be that fantastic. We found them to be, again, quite middling. And you're getting a really spacious screen here. So if you're looking for a large screen on your device, you probably want to go for this one. I think this is the largest screen on this list. 6.5 inches. It's still 720p, so it's not going to blow you away. But we're looking at a phone that's about £150. So you can't be complaining too much about that. But yeah, not everyone is looking for a large display, but if you are, this is the one to go for. A couple of other quick notes as well is that it has 128GB of storage version. Again, quite a rarity that we find that sort of level of storage within this market. And you also got the option of 4GB of RAM. I think there's a 3GB of RAM version as well for this.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, yeah, you're absolutely right. This is sort of probably on the higher end of this list, right? Especially if you're going to go for that 128GB version, you're going to be paying a little bit more. But the battery life, I think, solidly places this in at the number 2 spot. Like you say, is exceptional and even outperforming some flagship handsets, like you say, at least on the spec sheet. So then coming in at the number 1 spot, the Moto G8. Why does this deserve to be in the number 1 spot, James?
The Motorola G series has done fantastically well at just always being consistently good, and again they've done it again here with the Moto G8. I remember the original Moto G coming out and just sort of blowing us away and being like, wait, this phone is only about £200. That's mental. Yeah, this one is £160 at the time we're speaking. You're getting genuinely really good performance out of the Qualcomm Snapdragon 665 chipset that's inside and 4GB of RAM. Again, you're getting really good battery life, not as good as the Oppo because there's only a 4,000 milliamp cell, but this is doing quite well here. There's a 6.4-inch display, which again is 720p. Some people will be a bit disappointed by that because the Moto G7 had a full HD screen. The reason for that is the Moto G7 is a more expensive phone than the Moto G8. Motorola had a bit of a recalibration this year, and they sort of mixed up the line a little bit. And the Moto G8 is now the more affordable phone in the handset range. There are still even more affordable phones phones than the Moto G8, but they are aiming this one at a little bit better price point at the moment. Another thing that really feels like a miss on this as well is that we are seeing a phone in 2020 that doesn't have an NFC chip. That is a bit of a disappointment in my opinion. I wrote the review for this phone, and I was genuinely a bit disappointed about that, because that does feel like a standard thing that you should get on all handsets now. So those are my two things to watch out for. Is the display isn't phenomenal, and it doesn't have NFC, but it is still our favourite cheap phone because of everything else on it. You're getting genuinely really good spec everywhere else for quite a phenomenal price.
Absolutely. And just so for the audience, what is NFC? You mentioned it a couple of times there. It's probably worth...
Sure. So that is a chip within the phone that allows you to connect to NFC chips around the world. The main use case scenario that you would have for this is for Google Pay, so you'll be able to go out and do contactless payments with the phone. That feels like something that should be a standard on most phones at the moment to me. Motorola clearly doesn't agree.
Yeah, especially with sort of the way 2020 has gone so far. Cash is becoming more and more scarce, so that might be a deal breaker for some people. So I think it's worth bringing up for sure.
Definitely.
So that's it. That's our list. That's our top 5 list. I'm curious. Let's cover maybe some points. Sort of, if you had this specific interest, which of these phones would you go for, right? So if you were looking for a photography phone, right? Obviously, under £200, you're going to struggle there. But if you were going to go for one of these 5 and you were an amateur photographer, and that was important to you, which one would you go for?
I'd probably go for one of the top phones, one of the top 3 there, the Huawei, the Oppo, or the Motorola. I've used the Motorola camera quite extensively for our review. It's got a 16 megapixel main shooter, if I'm right. Yeah, I'd probably opt for that. It's, again, you're looking at a phone for £150, so you're not going to get flagship quality level photos out of this. But if you are just looking for a generalist a generalist camera that you can just take the odd shot on, that's probably the one to go for.
Absolutely. And we mentioned earlier, battery life wise, it's the Oppo, right? It's got the biggest battery for sure.
Yep.
And if you're looking for just the cheapest phone on this list, right, it's probably the Honor 10 Lite. If you're looking for something just to be able to text and call and not do too much else, that's probably the one to go for, right?
Yeah, I would agree. Again, like, if you want to spend that little bit extra and go for the Motorola or the Oppo, I know £30 can be a lot of money to some people, but I would recommend spending that little bit of extra to go for one of the phones that are toward the top of the list, especially with the Honor and Huawei issues that we've spoken about previously. But yeah, I think, if any of the phones on this list will probably impress you.
Absolutely. Before we close out then, James, I just wanted to cover, Prime Day, Black Friday, Cyber Monday, all these big deal days are just around the corner. So if you're looking for a budget phone, maybe you're just looking for a deal in general. So where would you keep an eye out? What sort of brands are we looking at and expecting maybe some price cuts from around this time?
Sure. I think a lot of the phones in this list will get discounts from a variety of different retailers. I wouldn't expect anything to be absolutely groundbreaking. These are already quite tight price points for these manufacturers, and they're already looking at it will be the case of £10 off here, £20 off here. I think Motorola is probably one of the ones to look out for. Quite often we see deals from Amazon and a variety of other retailers on Motorola products, maybe the Huawei elements as well. Essentially, if the phone is older, you're probably more likely to get a deal on it. Also, at that sort of time, you should probably be looking around for other brands as well, devices that aren't going to sit in this list. So things that are more than £200, maybe coming down to less than £200 for that small price, for that small deal period, essentially. So for example, we may see the Google Pixel 3a from last year start to drop in price again. The Google Pixel 4a from this year may also get a price discount. I can't imagine it go down from its £400 price point to the £200 price point, but you may see it hit £350, £300, that sort of level. Yeah, so look out for those sort of devices. If you're looking for an iPhone as well, there may be some deals around the iPhone SE. That phone did only come out in March 2020, so I'm not certain if we're going to see any phenomenal deals on that. But generally, my advice would be that cheap phones aren't going to see remarkable price drops. Usually, flagships are where we see the really groundbreaking deals, and the iPhone range is usually where we see the really big price differences there. But if you are looking, if you've got the benefit of that you can wait for a little while, maybe wait and see if any of these devices will drop. But again, I don't expect to pick any of these things up for £20 or anything like that. No. We're going to be talking £150 phone going down to 130, not anything revolutionary.
Absolutely, absolutely. Great advice there. Thanks for coming on, James. Really appreciate it. And it's worth mentioning to you guys as well that you should keep an eye on TechRadar.com, right? Because on Amazon Prime Day, on Black Friday, on Cyber Monday, the team work really hard to update you on all the best deals that are going on at that exact moment. So that's the best place to go, really. Check it out there, and we'll be updating you as those deals go live. Thanks for joining me, James. Really appreciate it.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
No problem at all. And remember, guys, the only thing left to say is to head to TechRadar.com for the latest tech news and reviews.